You're watching CBC Sports. Happy New Year. Anastasia Busis here. I have the pleasure of chatting with one of my childhood heroes and one of the most inspirational Olympians of all time. You know her well, of course, three-time medalist, two-time champion, Order of Canada 2022 Beijing chef de mission for the Olympic team, Catriona Le May Doan, one of the greatest Olympians, has inspired so many of the current generation. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm so happy to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm so happy to see your face. You were just elected as chair to the Canada Games Board Council. That's a huge honor. Congratulations. What helped you make that decision to take the role?
Yeah, thank you. I'm super excited. I've been involved in Canada Games, well, as I was just saying, for 42 years. Like it's sometimes scary around the board table. I'm like, wow, I've outlived everybody here. But it's so exciting. I love the Canada Games. I believe in them. I've lived them through athlete, media, board, and now chair and volunteer and everything. And so I know the impact that they can have, as you do as an
Mhm.
athlete, as so many athletes and volunteers and coaches and family members do. But I'm just really excited to take on that role and be part of such a great team moving forward.
You have played so many roles, and have so many perspectives to bring to this. What are your first big goals that you want to challenge and tackle?
It's funny because many people often say, "Oh, what hat are you wearing?"
Mm.
Are you wearing Canada Games hat? Are you wearing chef de mission hat? Are you wearing Sport Calgary hat? I wear the sport hat. And for me, sport is a part of all of our lives. It's part of the fabric of our country, and that's what Canada Games is a part of. It's a part of our community. It's part of grassroots. It's part of high performance. And for me, so many people have been involved in the Canada Games in the almost 60 years since they have been created. And, when we look at the almost over 80,000 alum of Canada Games, and yet there's still some Canadians who don't know about the Canada Games, the Canada Games are unique to Canada. They truly touch, and have the ability to touch every Canadian. I want every Canadian to know about that. So, we're approaching St. John's in 2025. We're approaching the 60-year anniversary in 2027. How do we tell the story to all Canadians about the power that the Canada Games has had, not just in the sporting world, but in our community? And so really working with the team, the great team at Canada Games Council, and just, being a part of that, helping to tell that story, doing my part to not just talk about my sporting experience, but about my experience of the Canada Games and how they've moved me.
So many athletes have such similar stories. I mean, it is a huge multi-sport experience and event. You think of Andre de Grasse, you think of Mary-Philip Poulin, Sidney Crosby, yourself, the list goes on and on and on. What was your experience at the Canada Games that really helped dictate some of your success later on?
You learn that it's more than just about yourself. So my first
Mm.
games, I just turned 12. I was a deer in the headlights. We were in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean in a gym with about 30 of us in army cots. I mean, standards have changed. But the experience there, I was literally like, wow, all these other athletes, there are other sports, there are other people in this country, right? I just turned 12. I had no idea of
Yeah.
sort of the vastness. But my next games in 1987, it was about having that sport goal, but I truly was like, I'm just one of many people of Team Sask. And then Team Sask is just one of, we were 12 PT teams there, provincial territorial teams there. And so it was like, okay, there's more than just me. And so you learn to perform at that moment in that high pressure situation because you know it when you go to a Canada Games, you want to stand on the podium just as you do at every level of competition. But it taught me how to deal with a multi-sport games,
Mhm.
how to deal with a games environment, because then I started to understand, okay, I'm one member and I'm not the only member and I'm not the only
Yeah.
sport. And, you know, even the ceremony, eating in a cafeteria, it's different. And you
Yeah.
have to learn to deal with that. And everybody says, oh, when you go to an Olympics, Paralympics, World Championships, sometimes those bigger games, it's overwhelming. But a Canada Games starts to teach you how to be a part of that. And you're nodding because you agree, and you probably went through the same thing.
I was lucky. I competed 2007, won a silver medal, one of the highlights of my life, and the pin trading, so much fun. I
Yeah.
do want to talk high performance though, because you were the chef in Beijing 2022. What
Mhm.
did that experience teach you that you hope to kind of bring back to Canada Games as well?
Yeah, and we talk about highlights. And for me, a lot of people ask, you're an Olympian, you've stood on the podium, you must have the Olympic rings. I had always told myself I would never get the Olympic rings tattoo until I was chef de mission. It was just a deal I'd made with myself because it came full circle. And I've lived sport kind of at every level. And for me, being the chef de mission was sort of the highlight. And, the fact that they were COVID games, while you interviewed me, I just lost my mom 2 weeks before the opening ceremony, and I was a mom to over 200 athletes. But when it comes down to it, regardless of what happens on the field of play, it's about the impact that you make. That's truly what makes a person a champion. It's what they bring back to sport and to their community. And that's what the Canada Games does. It's about community because you teach these young athletes from across the country about the rest of the country. They often go to communities they've never been to before. They often see cultures and places and experiences that they've never seen or heard of possibly. You bring the volunteers together, you build volunteers in a community, and you learn about people. And it's about that impact. For me, everything comes back to impact because if tomorrow's my last day, have I made an impact on somebody to be better? And the games create an environment where everybody wants to shine and everybody wants to showcase how great their community is. And that's what the games do, not just from a sporting
Yeah.
perspective, from a culture, from an art, from a volunteer, from business, in every way. And that's what the games do.
Well, speaking of impact, I mean, I think to Paris 2024, Canada wins 27 historic medals, one of the greatest experiences and showings ever for the red and white. What does that momentum do, from Paris to trickling to Canada Games?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the correlation for how, again, you teach athletes, to deal with that environment. We're coming out of COVID games, and so I think Paris was all of a sudden, woohoo, we're
Hmm.
finally, we're able to have people on the ground. We showcased incredible performances by the Canadian athletes, incredible venues, but it also showed everybody in the world what you can do with facilities, how you can showcase amazing, you don't have to build these brand new facilities. You can adapt together. And from that environmental standpoint, our footprint, what are we leaving? So I think that's what Paris showed us. But from a Canadian standpoint, I mean, we're always from the Canada Games side celebrating athletes who are alum of Canada Games and go on to compete at that higher level. And it's not just at the Paris Olympics, we look at the Paralympics and the fact that Canada Games has that integration of able-bodied, para sport, and Special Olympics. And it's unique in that way that we can integrate the athletes within 2 weeks of one single games. And so, I think everybody coming out of Paris, we're excited because less than a year's time, we're going to be in St. John's focusing on that. And then just a few months later, the 26 Olympic Paralympic Games. And then just 1 year after that, we have the 60-year anniversary of in Quebec City of 2027 Canada Games. So we've got a lot of sport for people to watch.
A lot of sports. What would your message be to Olympians and Paralympians that are building towards Italy 2026? We're almost a year out.
Mhm. One step at a time. We know that it's easy to get overwhelmed. It's easy to look ahead and say, oh my goodness. And, I actually can't tell you today. It's probably like 300 and, 80 days or something is the opening ceremony. One step at a time. You need to have a goal. We all do in everything we do, but how do you take those steps on just moving forward each and every day, because between now and then a lot will happen. But it'll be exciting. I think anytime you see an athlete on a screen, on a piece of paper, anywhere that you see coverage and they're wearing the red and white, it's it's an honor, but it's also, I mean, there's a lot of responsibility. And I always try to remind athletes that, wear that responsibility, because it's not just that, oh, I earned this. It's like you are representing all Canadians, but the Canadians are proud. And
Yeah.
so it's about that pride of viewers watching the athletes and the athlete being proud of wearing that maple leaf.
Well, there's going to be an opportunity for Canadians to be proud and athletes to be proud of themselves. Calgary is hosting our favorite sport, of course, the Long Track World Cup, January
Mhm.
24th, 26th. It is going to be on CBC. The team is doing so well. The red and white are absolutely on fire. What are your current thoughts?
Yeah, I'm always so excited that Calgary hosts an event every year. I will say the fastest ice in the world. And believe it or not, it's 38 years since that building opened. Amazing that it's still so incredible. The athletes are already there training because it's high altitude. They love the facility. They love, as you know, I mean, being attached to the university, you have all the services, and the city comes together. Last year at the World Championships, we saw the stands full, kids, adults, people who had never been in the Oval. So I'm excited. I'm excited to watch them. I'm excited to cheer them on. And again, as we talk about 1 year out of the games, we've had already good results overseas. Evanie, we know that Evanie Blondin, anytime she gets on the ice, I mean,
She wants to
she
win.
is she wants to win. And it's like, look out, everybody. But, it's so exciting because she's been such a great leader. And then, I mean, and, it's so good to see the dynamics of the team because they're working so well together. Isabel Weideman, who is just such an incredible example in Beijing, and she's, sort of done a little bit of her own thing lately, and it's paid off. And I just saw her not long ago at a dog park, and the fact that she's in such a good mental mindset because she did what she needed to do to have a little bit of a mental break, but still training,
Yeah.
and she's ready to go. And we've seen that in so many of the results. So on the women's side, on the men's side, also Laurent Debray, but we also have some of the young ones coming up. And what's funny is some of the young ones coming up, and I see the last names. Well, Laurent Debray, he's not as young, but I did race with his father and his mother. But then to see like La Liberté, and it's like, oh goodness
Yeah.
me, that child is now old enough to race because I raced with the parents. So it's fun to see,
Yeah.
but it's great to see that level coming up. My kids think it's awesome. My kids are 20 and almost 18, and they think it's awesome that I still have the Canadian record in the 500.
Yeah.
It's fun, but I'm going to tell you, I want it to be broken because it should be broken. So that's where, we have some great young sprinters coming up, but I'm going to be cheering them on because it's time for that record to go.
You heard it here first. 37:22. I know that record better than I almost know that like my own telephone number. Catriona, that was a huge, huge goal of mine. I failed miserably in breaking that record. Thank you for inspiring me, though, for 24 years. And yeah, 24th, 25th, 26th, World Cup in Calgary. Team Canada won 10 medals last World Championships. They are absolutely on fire in long track, and it's going to be a blast. Catriona, it is always such a privilege and pleasure to chat with you, and congratulations on the new role with Canada Games.
Thank you, Anastasia. Thanks for calling me an inspiration. And I think, the work you're doing is awesome, and you're inspiring the next generation as well. So thank you.
Thank you.